And this term for the policies that enable global capitalism is neoliberalism. Now, a lot of people hear that and they think of liberalism, but it's usually at the opposite end of the ideological spectrum in relation to political and economic policies. So neoliberalism is actually a conservative idea because it's the opening up of free trade, so deregulating trade and maximizing profits. Along with that, neoliberalism attempts to privatize natural resources and institutions. So privatizing things like water rights, having a private corporation own water, having private corporations own institutions like public transportation, having a corporation be in charge of that rather than a public institution is a neoliberal idea. One of the worst examples of this is corporations trying to privatize water in Peru. So they made it illegal to catch rainwater in certain parts of Peru because they claimed that they owned the rain, right? Wild, right? I think they're able to push back on that, and I no longer think that is the case. But yeah, this idea that rather than the natural resources belonging to everyone, they actually belong to a private company is one of the main features of neoliberalism. Also, reliance on the individual and minimal government intervention or support for social services. Yes, this idea that it's up to the individual and government shouldn't regulate economies or intervene or support for social services like education, medicine, intervene for social services, right, like social security or rent, that these things are private and up to you as an individual rather than things that should be supported by a society that cares for all, right? And so this is neoliberalism. Again, the tenets of neoliberalism are really advocating for free trade, the privatization of resources and institutions, and this idea of a smaller government, so less regulation. So again, it's a conservative concept. This leads to the last part of economic globalization, which is these financial institutions, these sort of global financial institutions, and these sort of governing bodies like the World Trade Organization, the World Bank, and the International Monetary Fund. And they're in charge of like loans and so the powerful quote unquote countries in the world control the wealth and how they kind of like plan and determine the economies of that aren't in the first world, right? And then they make loans to them. And so it's controlled by these quote unquote like first world countries. At the same time, there's pushback and resistance against this kind of control of the world's monetary system. So specifically in Seattle, I think in 1999, there was a lot of the WTO, I believe, was meeting, and there was a lot of resistance. People took to the streets and they protested this, international elite system of controlling capital that's been in control of the world economy. So so there's been resistance. Also, your book mentions in 2012, I believe it's 2012, 2011, the Occupy movement, right? And pushback against these kind of disparities in wealth, right? That 1% of the world, 1% of the world's population owns with like 99% of the wealth, right? Or whatever, 80% of the wealth, something like that. And then this movement that we are the 99%, right, is about uh, this kind of resistance, this popular resistance to these elite financial institutions and ways of controlling capital in the world. And also implications for intercultural communication. So yeah, we see increased disparity within and across cultural groups, definitely. So how different cultural groups have been affected by these kinds of policies, and then even within cultural groups, just how individuals have been treated. Increased intercultural alliance for social justice, yeah, but at the same time, there is this opportunity for people to come together against these kinds of economic inequalities, right? Like we see with the Occupy movement, and in other movements.